At the Mic with Michael Schumacher, brought to you by JR's Oasis. It's more than a fuel station, more than a convenience store. It's your one-stop travel shop on Fox Sports Radio, 101.5 FM, 1570 AM, KVTK, Vermilion and Yankton. And we are talking amateur baseball, as I've been doing lately, and had a broadcast just about weekly with South Central League Baseball. And as I've done interviews with players, past and present, a name keeps coming up. And so I reached out. Somebody sent me a number. I was like, okay, I'm going to try. So we have Steve Fejfar on the line. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I am better than I deserve. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. I'm sure you got a text asking for an interview, and you're like, what is this about? So I appreciate you replying.
Yep, no problem.
And so, before we get into the baseball, just take a moment to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, your family, and your background in baseball.
Well, I'm Steve Fejfar. I grew up in Tabor. Started my baseball there. Ended up moving to Sioux Falls after about 4 years of playing baseball in Tabor, and that's where I went after I graduated college, played baseball in Sioux Falls for the Silver Bullets. Then moved down to the Elk Point area for my job-related reasons, and played with the Vermilion Red Sox for about, 11, 12 years, then went back to Tabor for about 11 years, and now I'm playing with the Elk Point Colt 45s, or that's who I played with. I'm on the team now with the Elk Point Colt 45s, so... family-wise, I have, my wife is Michelle, formerly Inkstrom. She's also originally from Tabor. I have 3 children. Ashley's my oldest. She's down in Kansas City area with, I have 3 grandkids, 3 grandsons with her. Jessica, my middle child, is up in Bloomington, Minnesota. She has one child, married to Brandon Copel. And my son Preston is up in Sioux Falls. He's a nurse up at Vera McKinnon, married to Brittany Kirchhoff, and they are expecting a child. So that's kind of where I sit right now.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, there's a lot of baseball to talk about, but I'm going to kind of start at maybe not one of the more recent, but one of the cool things that happens, and one of the things that I love about amateur baseball is the generational connections. And you had the opportunity to play with your son, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure did, yep.
What, for all of your time in baseball, what did that moment or what did that experience mean to you?
Yeah, that was a great feeling to play with him. So that was when I was with the Elk Point Colt 45s. The first year, we picked him up as a Legion kid going to postseason, and then he come out and played with us, and we actually even won a district championship together. So, yeah, that was a nice experience. We had one game where we went, both hit home runs the same day, which was also kind of neat. So, yeah, it was a good feeling to play with him.
Well, it really is. And obviously coming from Tabor, you come from a community that not just likes baseball, but seems to truly embrace it, truly experience baseball in Tabor. And so many of the South Central League teams are like that. When did baseball first come on your radar as something that you had a passion for? Because to play as long as you have, and at the amateur level, especially where you're not getting paid, it's a sacrifice to continue to play. When did it kind of latch on to you, baseball?
So it latched on very early on. When you grew up in Tabor, that is what I did. My dad played. My stepdad played. I went to games as a kid, right, early on. So my stepdad played. My stepdad's Larry coach. Her dad is Bill Fejfar. But so Larry played right up until the time I started playing amateur ball. So I was going to games as a child, chasing foul balls. I was bat boy, do scoreboard. So it started very early on. Seeing all the rivalries with all the South Central teams, all the people at the games, it was just, it was a lot of fun to go to games as a kid, and it just carried over, growing up and playing ball and then wanting to play amateur ball for Tabor.
Well, and so obviously started off in Legion, and you were successful early. Was there a time or a moment where you kind of knew that you were good at the game, that it wasn't just something you loved, but it was something that you were good at?
I would say that probably happened somewhere in the teeners, when I started to develop a little more, because I was pretty scrawny growing up. But once I started filling out a little more, probably, sophomore, junior in high school, getting up into that age bracket, last year teeners, we started going to state, we were always going to state tournaments, but now I was playing more and doing better, and that's probably when that all started happening.
All right. And so obviously, you were successful in Legion. You guys won a baseball title in the mid '80s, and Legion baseball has been huge in Tabor for a while. But then you were, and I've never done a study, but it feels like Tabor has per capita or per season has more than its share of players of the year, and you were one of those. And then you went on from there. You went on to Northern State. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yep.
Oh.
Well, I went to USD one year, 85, 86, and then they dropped baseball.
Okay.
And we had a really good team that would have been coming back. So then I went to Northern and played there for the next 3 years. Yep.
All right. And you're a player that, you talked about hitting a home run in the same game as your son, and you have a number of home runs in the state tournament and stuff. But you were also a bit of a speedster. I think people say I don't do research, but I do some. You have a stolen base record at Northern State, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I actually used to be fast, which is no longer the case. But my junior year, I did. I think I was 26 for 28 in stolen bases my junior year. So I think I had 14 maybe my senior year. We were a lot better my junior year, though, as far as a team.
Well, and so obviously, you played through college. When you came back, was amateur baseball, did you just kind of assume that's what you were going to do once you were done, that amateur baseball was going to be a part of your life?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Always looked forward to the summers in amateur baseball, yep.
All right. And obviously, amateur baseball, there's a certain framework that is consistent, but you've played with a variety of teams with Tabor, a community of 400 or so, but also playing up in Sioux Falls, more Class A with the Silver Bullets, Vermilion, and Elk Point. What have been some of the similarities with each of those, but maybe has there been a difference with some of those experiences, maybe even as you've matured?
Yeah, that's a good question. I never thought about that. As far as when I went to Sioux Falls, we were just a lot of young guys just wanting to play baseball, because we started that team in 1990. That was the first year of the Silver Bullets, and we come out and won a state championship right away in the state A's. We were just a bunch of young kids that were fired up to play baseball, and I was there for 4 years, and just a good time. When I came back down here, went to Vermilion, it was, we had a few. We were more looking at some veterans with a few young guys, a little more of a mix probably. And ended up winning a couple state championships with Vermilion with a mix of young and old guys, and then I just decided to go back to Tabor, and again we had a mix of young and old there, and had some good teams. So, in my first years with Tabor, we were more veterans then. I was a young guy with a bunch of veterans, and we had some really good teams there too, but just couldn't make the state championship.
Well, in your second stint with Tabor, there'd been quite a bit of a lack of state championship appearances, but you guys were runners up in 2011, and that was Tabor's first appearance in the state championship game since 1947. What was that run like, just because knowing the love of baseball in Tabor to make that state championship appearance?
Yeah, that was a fun state tournament. We had good games every game. We somehow come on top. We beat some great teams in Parkston Mudcats and Del Rapids Mudcats, and then end up, against Crofton, one of our rivals, and unfortunately give up like 8 runs in the first inning, which made it really tough. Only lost by a few runs, but that was a tough first inning at the end. But yeah, that was a great run. A lot of fun, that tournament.
Well, and the state tournament is always a cool entity, in seeing all of these teams, because everybody really prides themselves on their league, and South Central League fans are the same. And so it's fun to see these teams playing each other. What is that state championship experience like? Because it's different. You play, whether you're playing in Crofton or Tabor, you have this smaller venue, more intimate, and then you get to that state championship game, and the venue's a little bit bigger. Obviously not like a Fenway Park or anything, but still it's a different element. What's that experience like?
Yeah, so it is a completely different experience, because I'm always used to, when I was growing up, everything was in Mitchell, and so especially playing in Mitchell, it was a little more nerve-wracking, even because I just grew up there, going to state tournaments there, and to be there on the field in the state championship, unfortunately, it starts getting in your head a little bit sometimes. But it's very exciting. There's big crowds. It's just a lot of fun to play in a state championship,
Well, and as somebody that gets to announce it, I'm not athletic, but it's so fun to be there and experience broadcasting that. Now, I grew up in Crofton, and so I grew up reading the box scores and reading the stats and reading the game summaries in the Press and Dakota, and I had the players that I just thought were next level. I've said this before, but I always thought when I was 7 or 8 years old that these guys were just undiscovered, that they could be this. Now, obviously, I know that's not the case, but when you were growing up, who were some of the players that you looked up to, whether it was a Tabor player or a Crofton player or whatever? Who were some of those names for you?
Well, growing up, I remember like when John Peckham played in Tabor, and then he went to Scotland, and when Dave Gassman was in Scotland, I remember that when I was a kid. My stepdad, Larry Kocher, was a great player with Tabor. My Uncle Don was, my Uncle John was. Then you'd go to Scotland, you had Doug Schooley and Tom Schlimgen, and Freeman had the Petey Boys, and Menno had the Liebels, and there were just a lot of players you would see play that you admired them, because, and this is when I was a kid going to the games, watching them all play, and there was a lot of great players in the South Central League that played, like Crofton even, had Bob Hagee and guys like that. There was just a lot of really good players that played amateur baseball in the South Central League when I was growing up.
Well, and that's what was fun. And you mentioned Bob Hagee, and and that's what's so cool about the amateur leagues is, we talked about you getting to play with your son, but it's that it's a family affair, whether it's generational or siblings. But I know for Crofton, Gunthers and Hagees and Schiefers are big. You get over to Tabor, same sort of thing over there. What is it about amateur baseball, just at its core, that makes it so much fun and makes people want to sacrifice, whether it's time or vacation or whatever it might be, because these are people that are working jobs and then making that commitment to, whether it's to play a game at home or to then get on the road and travel 20, 30, 40 minutes to play a game.
Well, I think number one is just a love for baseball and a love for playing it, and another thing is just the rivalries. We had such great rivalries. For me, South Central, I'm sure the Corn Belt has their great rivalries, but when we'd go to Lesterville and play, or they'd come here or go to Scotland or Freeman, crowds were packed, people were parked all around the park, yelling and screaming, and umpires would take a beating some games. There'd be people yelling and screaming, and it was just a lot of fun, a lot of excitement to be at the games or to play in the games, and that's why it was so much fun when I left Vermilion and went back to Tabor. I was really looking forward to playing in South Central again, just because of all the rivalries and the crowds you would get at games. And like, Tabor had their Check Days game last night, and I didn't hear who won, but that game is always a lot of fun to play in because the crowd is so huge and just a lot of fun. So,
well, it was, and Tabor did come out on top, and to see the stands full, but then to see the outfield just rimmed, not just with a single depth of people, but it's 4, 5, 6 people deep, and all of the pickups out there, and all of the vehicles out there. That is something special to see. And obviously, amateur baseball has been a part of your life for many decades, but you were also honored, received and inducted into the Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame, which is that next level. What did that mean to you? What was your reaction when you were told?
Yeah, I thought that was a great honor. There were so many people in there that I looked up to as a kid, to be in there, you don't really feel like you deserve it to be with some of these people, because growing up, you just see how well they did and all their stats and all their records. And so, you don't feel worthy almost of being in it, but it was a great honor to go to that, to be in it. And I got a lot of friends in it now that I played with and played against, and it's a great honor to be in that. Yep.
Well, and that is cool. And I as a non-athlete, I just love baseball, and I've always loved amateur baseball. And like I said, your name kept coming up, whether it was people that growing up, somebody that they loved to watch or somebody that they enjoyed playing with. Your name kept coming up, and so I was like, you know what? I want to try to get this interview. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I really appreciate it. And like I said, getting a random text from somebody asking for an interview, I'm sure you were wondering what the heck was going on. But again, I just love amateur baseball. I love the South Central League, and so this has been fun. I hope you don't feel like I wasted your time, because I thoroughly enjoyed this.
No, I appreciate it. Yep, it was good.
All right. Well, you have yourself a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you later.
You bet. Sounds good. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Steve Fejfar, longtime Tabor Bluebird, Elk Point Colt 45, Sioux Falls Silver Bullets, Vermilion Gray Sox. I think there was another Vermilion team in there as well, and I apologize, I'm probably blanking on it. But just an South Dakota Amateur Baseball Hall of Famer, and that's what I love. South Dakota's I love amateur baseball. Crofton, why not? I'm from Nebraska, so that's kind of what I grew up with. Whether it was the Blue Jays or the Crofton Crows, that beautiful green and yellow, kind of Menno-ish almost colors. Maybe not the neon-ish colors, but it's still green and yellow, John Deere type of colors. And Tabor and Lesterville, Scotland. I still hope you guys are able to get a team. That was so cool with Dave Gassman, Tim Ashe. So many great names from Scotland as well. And Irene with growing up with Cease family playing there. And so I hope you enjoy these interviews, because I love talking amateur baseball, and we love covering amateur baseball here on Fox Sports Radio, also on 5-Star streaming on YouTube. And so we have a number of games left to cover this season. We'll cover the districts, and we will cover every South Central League game at the state tournament. And we want to thank our sponsors for that. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of these South Central League baseball conversations, just give me a call, 605-661-5858. All right, we'll be back with more. This is At the Mic with Michael Schumacher, brought to you by JR's Oasis.